It's showtime. We are live around the interweb. Little plug for Tim Hortons.
You're going to start our whole broadcast with a Tim Hortons product placement. I feel like we're losing credibility right now because, I mean, I don't even know.
Well, maybe we need to make sure that Tim Hortons company culture is great. Is one of Canada's, well, formerly Canada. I think it's owned by an American company now. It's it's an iconic brand of Canada, mate. So perhaps Tim Hortons, if anyone from Tim Hortons is listening, how's your culture? How is it?
Is there a Tim Hortons of Australia?
No.
I don't think there's a Tim Hortons of America either, actually, quite frankly. I mean,
well, Tim Hortons, I believe it got bought out by the same mob who own Burger King.
Ah, okay.
So from that point of view, yeah.
I think I read that Budweiser, which is a American beer, okay,
Good American beer.
Americans drink Budweiser, is owned by a Belgian company, but I could be wrong about that. That may be different.
You can get, actually, a lot of Australians drink Budweiser down here too, actually.
There's a new Budweiser that we just discovered that is, check this, 56 calories, the lowest beer calorie count, and it's 2.7 ABV, which I know Canadian beer is like 13.10 ABV, right?
Yeah, we don't drink that
beer.
Watery stuff, the watery stuff that you Americans drink. No.
Yeah, there's a joke in there somewhere, but I'm not going to issue it on my broadcast. Hey, how you doing, Dave Clare?
I'm doing great, mate. I'm just sharing the links to right now, this very second, to everybody, so they can get on and join this conversation, this dialogue, this banter.
This is my Apple product placement. It's AirPods. It even has my name on it. I'm wearing these at the moment. And that's all I have within reach. I don't know who the maker of this purple mug is, but it's got electrolytes and water and all sorts of cool stuff in it. So, Dave, our pre-call, you were telling me how cold it is there. I mean, I feel like you're suffering. I really do. I feel
Thank
so
you.
bad for you.
Thank you.
And you told me the Celsius, which of course, being an American, I had no idea what that meant. And then you translated it into Fahrenheit, and it turns out it's 50 degrees in Australia. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
where I am in Australia. It's warmer than that in other parts. Okay.
I live in Texas, where 50 degrees can be semi-cold, right? I wouldn't say it's weather for sure. But I've also been in Cheyenne, Wyoming, when it was 45 degrees below. I don't know what that translates into Celsius, but yeah, about 100 degrees different. So whatever you're experiencing there, I've heard about people living in Chicago. When they walk out in the winter, they have to have every part of their face covered. Otherwise, they can get frostbite on just whatever's exposed, just walking.
Windy City. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know why they call it the Windy City, by the way?
It's not because of the wind?
No, Dallas is windier. Evidently, I read this on a Snapple cap, that Dallas is windier than Chicago. It actually goes back to politics. And they were
fighting, full of hot air?
Yeah, they were fighting with New York to try to get the World's Fair, the famous turn of the century World's Fair. And New York referred to them as the Windy City because of all the hot air they were blowing. I think we've all learned a little something here today.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so hey, you want to talk culture?
Yeah, man, I love talk culture. It's one of my favorite subjects.
So
it's not the favorite subject.
I have a question for you.
Go for it.
I was having a conversation with the team this week, and I had this epiphany, just born out of our, wrangling and conversations. And I basically told the CEO, a clique is not a culture. What's the difference between a clique and a culture?
Well, the very first thing that comes to mind to me when you think about a clique, these it's a very I want to use the word exclusive rather inclusive. It's not accepting usually of new people. It's a whole bunch of people who know each other or that associate regularly, consistently, which is fine. But it's not accepting usually of other people coming into it.
It's hard
or
to get
people feel on the outside of it.
Yeah. And when you've got that little, I mean, sometimes a team can feel, oh yeah, we're super close to each other. But man, breaking into that is like, pulling teeth. I mean, have you ever had that experience where you're trying to, ease into something where everybody's got this language? And
it's funny, like, because I always used to complain about this when we moved to Australia, when we moved into the community that we were in. You would go to the networking functions, right? To the local business events and things like that. And one thing I observed is that the same people hang out with the same people at all these functions, events, in their little cliques. And, you try to introduce yourself and bring yourself into the circle, and you're kind of like the odd person, like, because you don't know the dialogue, you don't know the conversations of the past and all the bits and pieces. And so it was always hard to find your way into the clique. It was far easier to go meet one of the people from that group later and another one and another one, another one, another one, and then eventually find your way into it. I just found it fascinating at a lot of business events that you find that the same people sit there and talk to the same people all the time and stand in their little circles.
Why do you think that is?
Because we're social beings and we crave connection and inclusion.
Do you think there's any like social anxiety attached to that? I'd rather talk to somebody I know than strike up a conversation with somebody I don't know. I mean,
absolutely.
I don't think we're wired that way. I mean, I'm sure we are, that we default to. I mean, if I saw you in a room and 5 strangers I didn't know, I'd probably go talk to you, right? But it's not out of social anxiety. It's not because I'm no. But a lot of people, it boils down to some of that.
Yeah, but I guess it's an interesting thing, like because this is really cool, because this is all like when we think about culture, we're not telling you just this little. I'm a bit different because I would go to a networking function and I'm happy to stand there and I'll say hello to a few people, but I sometimes I like to study human behavior, so I'm happy to stand there and just see how everyone's behaving, and I'm happy to go introduce myself. But usually those things, I already know who I want to go meet, who I want to see, and I'll know somebody who can introduce me to somebody. But I'm also that if you and I were all having a conversation in our little clique, and somebody else, I would be the first one to go and include somebody.
Yeah, I would too.
Somebody either on their own or somebody who I never knew or who looked like they were kind of trying to find somewhere to fit in. I would extend a hand and bring them in.
So I think there's a difference between having a rites of passage, barrier to entry that you earn your way in at some level, and an exclusivity that says, well, you're going to have to prove yourself first. And especially when people are going into a new job, for example, and they show up at work and, everybody's doing their thing and going off to lunch together. And it's very different from, hey, new guy, hey, new gal, come with us. We want to get to know you. And I think a lot of culture, I just think there's a vast difference between a clique and a culture. A culture is inviting.
Yeah.
It's embracing. It's interested. Versus, just, hey, ain't nobody, to quote Kanye West, ain't nobody messing with my clique, click, click. I can play the song if you'd like. It's got a lot of profanity in it. We probably shouldn't do that.
I much prefer your rendition of it.
Yeah. Well, check that song.
Yeah, go Kanye 2024.
Yeah.
Anyway,
hey, it can happen. Anything can happen in America.
Yeah, but I think that's a really good Well, because you see a lot of organizations where, and I'm trying to put myself in the position of the new person joining that organization, and as they come in, yeah, do they feel socially awkward trying to fit into this team that have been together for X amount of time, who know a little of their own backstories and all this bits and pieces and all the subtleties and nuances of each human being in there, and all of a sudden this other person comes in. If your culture is right, it should be very inclusive then, and it should be very opening, and it should be just a matter of fact, hey, there's someone else joining our amazing team. But if it's a clique, then it's like, oh, we've got to welcome this new person into and tolerate
and put
all
up
the social awkwardness of having somebody else join our team.
right. But they're in, but they're not quite in, and
No.
and they feel it, they know it.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
we criticize places like India, for example, for having a caste system, which
Great comment, by the way. Sorry, just here from Tim. Tim's one of my very, very good friends back in Canada, actually. He won't like my next comment, go Habs. But he said culture is inclusive, clique is discriminatory. Great.
Spot on, Tim. 100%.
Yeah.
Spot on.
Tim, by the way, is an amazing leader who he started a company way back. Well, where are we going back, Tim? It was LTL Expedited Air, and I still remember their purpose today. They're a third-party logistics company. He has not much hybrid logistics and all that now in Canada, but their purpose was to create the smartest distance between 2 points for their clients. Not the cheapest, not the fastest, but the smartest distance between 2 points.
Tim, that's nothing short of brilliant. Next, I'm going to find out that Dave Clare came up with that. That's why he remembers it.
No, Dave Clare facilitated that conversation.
No, I'm totally quoting that. That's great.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I actually, it's quite funny because having Tim on here is really awesome because, you can get back to your comment in a moment, but I need to make this about Tim for a second. When I actually sat down to work out what my own real true sense of purpose was to build the organization that I'm built today, it started with the very first conversation that I had with Tim. Whoa. And when I realized, and I shared the story here in Australia, but Tim's probably never heard me say this. So Tim, if you're still listening, please, you are certainly the catalyst for a lot of the work that I do today. When Tim finally got that mapped out, that he realized that his organization exists, the purpose behind his business was to create the smartest distance between 2 points. It was like a light bulb went on, and his ability then to help his team get a personal connection to that public sense of purpose, and to see where that very small team went to and what he built with that, from just getting that so clear on the sense of purpose of his organization, that's when I realized that the power of purpose. I knew it was powerful, but I did not realize how powerful it was until working with Tim and his team back in 2001 or 2 or whatever it might have been.
I was going to say, how many years ago was that? So
19, 20 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's profound. I mean, there's some of those, and this is why I think we love what we do, but some of those client moments are some of the most eye-opening when that collaboration and energy flows, of the ideas, and something just clicks and happens. So way to go, Tim. By the way, you talked to Tim that whole time. You did not hold up your mug as a little shout out to O Canada.
Okay, well, we'll just go Tim. Well done, Tim.
Well done, Tim. They may not say Horton below that. I was talking about caste system. Yeah. We criticize India for, which, by the way, didn't Canada? Didn't they colonize India for a while there? Wasn't that the Canadians that did that? That's a joke.
Okay.
Geez, Dave, keep up. Hey, Nancy. Oh, whoa. Okay. Talk about a very pertinent point. If that new person is rich or famous, we're all over them. Shameful values, right?
Yeah.
That there is this, and this actually, Nancy, gets into exactly what I'm talking about. My question was going to be, we can be critical all day long of an overt caste system.
Yeah.
But do we have a caste system? whether it has to do with, fame, money, position in companies. Do we have a caste system that some people have more value than others? That there's a, if you're at this level, you're never going to, you're never going to advance. All of that. I don't understand what talking about the haves.
Oh, that's the Montreal Canadiens. It's a hockey thing where it's the Canadians. We're having a little secret hockey thing whilst you don't even realize.
Aren't we in hockey playoffs right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
And my Montreal Canadiens took out his Toronto Maple Leafs.
Well, okay. All I want to say is it wasn't until the Stars moved from up north to Dallas that they won a Stanley Cup. I believe that was maybe their first Stanley Cup. So there is something about the warm weather.
But let's get back to let's get back to this. I want to explain this caste system. What do you?
I move in a lot of different circles, right?
Yep.
Well, let me give you this is a prime example. This actually ties to the association, actually. So when we were starting the association, I had a conversation with someone from SHRM, the Society of Human Resource Managers. It was an senior executive, go unmentioned, and we were talking about having a conference and doing a conference, and then doing more of a high-end kind of, CEOs of top, companies kinds of thing, a more exclusive type deal. And he said this, and I thought this was fascinating. He said, Daren, the Fortune 50 executives do not want to hang out with the Fortune 100 executives. Now, wrap your brain around that. I mean, what does it take to be Fortune 50 these days? I mean, obviously, multi-billion dollar company, right? But the gap between 50 and 51 can't be that big. And I wouldn't imagine the gap between, 45 and 75 could be that big. But evidently, there was a snobbery about it. And, what's the old birds of a feather flock together? People want to be with like-minded people, but when like-minded goes to status, then you get into a different category altogether. And I think that happens in companies.
But how does those top 50 stay top 50 if they don't talk to the people who are in the top 100 who want to be in the top 50? Because here's my thing, and this is one of my Clarisms, and you can quote me on this, is be number one, but think and act like number two. Because what does number two always want to be?
Number one.
Right. What's the problem, though, when you get to being number one or you're in the top 50 is staying in the top 50. Because you stop thinking like you did when you're in the top 100 to get into the top 50, for example.
Which you know well as I do, that people get scared and they start pulling back and they stop doing what they were doing. If you stop doing what you were doing to get where you are, then you're going to stop being where you are after not too very long.
Right. Which is why be number one, but always think and act like number two.
Okay. But I'm not sure that people necessarily, executives of companies, view it in that manner, that there's value that comes out. And look.
No, and I that's my point. They don't. But I think there would be. I'd be fascinated to see what those up and coming and the people there are doing. What are they working on? Just because you've made it, we've made it to the top 50. Like, I'd also want to know what the top 10 are doing, and I'd also want to know what the top 500 are doing. Like, what's the 250 to 500 companies? What are they working on? Where are they going?
But I think the rare leader wants to know what the mom and pop company down the street is doing.
100%.
Right. So I think there's a breakdown that we're not diversified enough, and I don't mean in all the hashtag popular nomenclature of that looks a certain way. Not that there's anything that's bad about that. Certainly, we certainly need to be more diversified. I always say, look around the boardroom, and if everybody looks like you, your company's in trouble, right?
Yeah.
Because you need a lot of ideas. You need a lot of different perspectives coming in. But in
So-
your estimation, Dave, the higher you get up, and I hate this terminology, let's say the higher in terms, I don't even know what to call it, but I started to say the ladder. I think all of that, the top, bottom, hierarchies we do have, they are important. But the higher you get up, does it get more diversified or less diversified in your experience?
Like in corporations?
Yeah, in corporations.
Majority, I would still say, be less diversified.
Okay, why is that?
Because it's just what I've seen. There's not enough diversification. And diversification is a really fascinating subject, because what does diversification look like? Is it people from different race, male, female? Is that diversification? It's definitely diversification in its purest sense, or a sense. But to me, diversification is, give me a philosopher, an artist, a scientist, a masculine energy, a feminine energy. Give me I want a diversification or diversity of thought, rather than just a physical diversity of people who still think the same.
I 100% agree. It's about the ideas. It's about the perspectives, point of view, right?
And I'm all for, please understand, I'm all for diversity of the look as well. Because hopefully that brings people from different cultures, let alone company cultures, but cultures together to share perspectives and learn. But you have to have a culture in its own self that is welcoming of diversity, and that can work with diversity, because sometimes that can create controversial thought and controversial question, and then that could make for harder to make decisions sometimes at times. But then I always challenge organizations, well, what are your decision-making filters? All our clients have a decision-making filter that we've built for them in terms of, does it fit with this, and through. So if you have a decision-making filter system, or if you like, then you can have all that diverse thinking, and then you funnel it through there, and you can still make the smartest decision. So the best idea wins, not the boss's idea, or not the standard, everyone thinks the same. So it's.
Did you see World War Z?
Was that the Brad Pitt movie?
Yeah, the zombie movie.
Does anyone ever tell you look like Brad Pitt's father?
I don't even know what that means. I've never seen Brad Pitt's father. I think you're being facetious, but was that funny when you were thinking about it, Dave?
It was funny in my head when I was thinking about it.
Yeah, our culture on this.
It's a bit of the Robert Redford look you've got going, mate. That's it.
Yeah, hey, I'll take that. Robert Redford at 85 years old is hot, and
well, that was a compliment, you see, and you're trying to think I was trying to be nasty about it. I was just like, that was purely a compliment, that you're too old to be Brad Pitt, but you're old enough to be his dad.
Hey, Paul Newman. Oh shoot, who's the guy? Unforgiven, Clint Eastwood.
Eastwood, yep.
All those guys have aged very, very well. And
yes, they have. It's amazing how much money cosmetics.
From my lips to God's ears, but yeah, you totally threw me off.
Okay, so Tim's just said top 50. Humility is always needed. You don't want to become an intellectual racist. I know it's a tough word, but it is what it is. That's a pretty cool way to describe lack of diversity, is intellectual racist.
What is an intellectual racist? I'm not sure I know what that means.
People, I would, if Tim's listening, it'd be great if Tim could put up what he means by intellectual racist. But when I read that, I go, that means if people aren't as smart as you, or don't think the same way as you, it's a form of bigotry or bias, or whatever you want to call it. Is that if you don't think like I think, well, then you're not my people.
Which comes in a lot of different forms, right?
Yeah.
So my sister is a New York Times steamy historical romance novelist. Okay, so she has the books with the guy on the cover and all of that, and
Fabios.
Yeah, exactly. So her pen name is Sabrina Jeffries, but her real name is Debbie Gonzalez. By the way, she was told not to write under the name Debbie Gonzalez years ago because it's too ethnic. Okay.
Right.
Just to stay on point with our topic here.
Hmm.
But she posted, now Deb has a degree from Tulane, which calls itself the Harvard of the South. A lot of schools refer to themselves that way, but it really is a high, great school. Graduated with a PhD in literature, did her dissertation on James Joyce, blah, blah, blah. I can't read James Joyce. And she posted something which was very freeing to me. And she said, I'm tired of being book shamed. I'm tired of people telling me if you're not reading the classics or if you're not reading, in your leisure time, these types of books, then you're not really doing it right. You're not, that's intellectual. I don't know if it'd be racism, but it's certainly intellectual, snobbery, right? If you're
you haven't read the classics?
Yeah. I've read the top 5 of my books of all time.
Your own books. And actually, you did a little shameless plug last time. If you want to read a book, I think this is one of the all-time classics, and you should read it. Okay, so there's my.
That was a quick plug, dude. If you're gonna do a plug, go in. It's like Martin Luther said, "If you're gonna sin big." Right? If you're gonna do a plug, don't do a wimpy little thing like that. I barely saw the cover title.
Well, I'm going to plug actually my friend Amy Jacobson. She just released her book on emotional intelligence, and there she is, Amy Jacobson. Just was fortunate enough to go to her book launch, and this it's a ripper little book on emotional intelligence, which is something that you and I. Oh, look! I just opened up the page and says, "What are our beliefs and values?" Whether a situation aligns with or challenges our current beliefs and values will play an important role in our ability to respond in an emotionally intelligent way. I just happened to open up to that one quote.
Okay. And what's her name?
Amy Jacobson.
Amy Jacobson.
Yeah.
Okay. How much better, Dave, would every company be if they only hired people with high emotional intelligence? That would be a force multiplier, I believe. What do you think?
Oh, 100%. Like that would be so powerful, which is why I love Amy's work that she does. And obviously, with a lot of our clients, we overlap in many ways and circles because the work that she does is so powerful. This whole thing like intellectual. So this is really cool. So Tim talked about intellectual racism. Well, that's if you're not as intelligent as me or intellectual as me, well, then you're not as good as me or whatever the anti of that is. However, if you're a highly emotionally intelligent person, well, then you wouldn't be bothered by that or threatened by that or need to be racist in that space. And I think the more, and a lot of guys like Gary Vee and all, they all talk about this, the emotional intelligence that's like the EI or the EQ is probably way more powerful than IQ.
It's the single most biggest factor, I think, in success in life is high emotional intelligence, being able to communicate. Yeah. And 99% of conflict that I see in the workplace or just going off in bad directions or bad decision making boils down to a lack of being able to communicate, which is emotional intelligence.
Yep. Yeah, when you think, this is the fascinating thing, looking at it from this whole dialogue we've had around, cliques and intellectual racism and this, if we, most times when this stuff happens, like if we get back to that whole clique thing, right? So people are together and they're not wanting people to join in, for example, or uncomfortable. Well, that's just a lack of emotional intelligence or, owning their situation and being open to allowing other people in and talking to them, including others into that section with it. But if you had a high level of emotional intelligence, you can go, hey, look, let's bring these people in, let's talk to them, let's learn from them. But if you don't have a high level of emotional intelligence, you might be afraid of something new. My buddy Peter Churn says sometimes people are afraid of putting themselves in a position to learn. Like creating this opportunity for, and as a leader in a culture, like, I guess to me, I'm just formulating my thoughts as they're coming out. It's just put yourself in danger of learning something new. Put yourself in danger of meeting somebody new. Put yourself in danger of a different thought to question and challenge. And that takes emotional intelligence. So can you imagine if leadership in organizations embraced that as a concept, where they were putting themselves in danger of speaking to someone that they wouldn't normally speak to, or talking to somebody else in the organization that they haven't met and learning about them or something about the business, and we had power and information coexisting together? Wouldn't that be impressive? But that would take emotional intelligence.
How many business meetings have you heard start with, okay, share with us one thing you learned this week and how it's impacted you? Right? I mean, focus on all the, all the wrong metrics. But yeah, we talked about this a little bit last time we were on here, which is just that idea that, do you want to be a know-it-all, or do you want to be a learn-it-all? And I'd much rather be a learn-it-all. I'm never done, dude. I read a lot of books.
Yep.
I study my craft. I've told you before, last year I read 5 books on writing, and I'm an author. And put out, 10 books. I read a whole bunch of books on speaking. You've got to constantly be learning, and I don't think we foster that that mentality, particularly in the corporate world, because to say, hey, I'm not sure what y'all are talking about, can someone please explain this concept to me? You're automatically, are you viewed in a high regard typically, or are you viewed as, how do you not know that, dummy? Yeah. What do you mean you don't know that?
Well, Gary Ridge talked about that part of his success at WD-40 that they had, where he's taken it to, was by playing what he called the dumb Aussie, right? Whereas everyone's talking about the stuff, and he was just like, can you help me to understand?
Did you say Gary? I think you called Gary Ridge Gary V.
No, I said Gary Ridge.
Okay.
At WD-40.
Yeah. No, I heard that. I want you to play back on that and just double check. Weren't you talking about Gary V earlier? You might have just, I'm just saying.
I'll play that back and I'll double check. Okay. And I will publicly apologize to
let's put a little wager.
Gary Ridge.
Yeah, let's put a little
Gary, wager. But the concept being, passing that, assuming that I was right, that Gary Ridge at WD-40, but like that's his whole thing. He's CEO of the organization, took it to $2 billion company with just a little blue and yellow can with a red lid on it. But with that sense of humility and ability to ask those questions and be seen to be learned, or to be learning, not learned, I think he contributes that to part of the major successes. He was always willing to ask questions, even though it made him look like he did not know.
Okay. So have you ever seen Undercover Boss?
Yes.
When a boss goes undercover, what does he do when he gets out in the field?
Starts going and talking to the people. He or she goes and talks to the people and gets to learn about them and their jobs and what they would do to improve the work. And
okay, but yeah, aside from the first part of that, the sappy part, where I'm going to buy your family.
Oh yeah. They pay for your college and they buy you a car, and
which, quite frankly, I mean, I get suckered in on that. I mean, love that humanity side of things. But he finds out what's really going on. I mean, he asks about the equipment, and he asks about, now, wait a minute, why are we doing it this way, right? So in effect, he does what you're saying leaders ought to be doing, which is asking questions and getting out there, going to the people closest to the valve, and saying, what makes your job difficult? What would improve your job if you were to have, be provided these tools? And so my question is, why does a CEO have to go undercover to do that? Right? Because our cultures are so jacked that, there would be a don't ask, don't tell, or, whoa, if the CEO shows up. Don't tell them what's broken with the system. And if you build a great culture, it doesn't work that way. A great culture.
Yeah, absolutely. But this just gets back to what you're talking about with the metrics at the meeting. So the whole thing intertwines here, right? So you're talking about like this, if they were actually doing that in the organization without having to go undercover to do it, they would be finding all this stuff out, right?
Right.
And so at meetings, they would be wanting to ask those questions. Hey, what'd you learn this week? What did, what's something, whether mistake you made and what you learned from it, whatever. And there's when you think about the metrics at meetings. So there's most organizations only work on two styles of metrics: vanity and sanity.
Wait,
and
did you say sanity or insanity?
No, just sanity.
Okay.
So vanity and sanity metrics. And then the last one, which I challenge them on, is what about the humanity metrics? So the vanity is revenue, sanity is profitability, but people is the humanity. And we always work on the revenue and the profit in those meetings and discussions. So we have, the vanity is like, oh, look how much money we're making. We've sold. The selling is the vanity. It's like the revenue is. But then profitability is how much did we make from that? That's the sanity part, right? And then, but what we rarely ask is what's the humanity metric? And those are things about the people. What are the humanity metrics in your organization? Like, what are your people learning? Who are they becoming? And do we lead the meetings with those first? Because you can talk about all the vanity and all the sanity as much as you like, but none of it exists without the humanity, or it doesn't exist at the level it's capable of without the humanity.
So I met a guy recently who's been very successful, sold multiple companies, and he said, Daren, it's the 3B.
Yeah.
It's people, planet, profits.
In that order.
And if you get those in that order and you get them right, you will be extremely profitable. The business will thrive. People, planet, profits.
So if you can help the people to help the planet, you'll profit from it.
Right, because you're either building, giving back, you're either advancing this wonderful species of ours, and beyond, right? It's just a whole different animal. Tim's chiming in here. Agree completely with you guys. Reimagine our educational system. What educational system, Tim? Really, seriously, let's not reimagine it. Let's scrap it and start back from scratch. It's so outdated and outmoded. But humanity would be develop your emotional intelligence. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
What's the one thing that's not taught in school? Emotional intelligence. So don't get me on the bandwagon.
Yeah, well, just on that point. So this applies to reimagining. Like I agree, we need to reimagine, but really more so, very Bruce Lee. Let's empty the glass and fill up a glass with a whole new amount of water. But Buckminster Fuller, one of my favorite quotes of all time, said, if you want to change the current reality, you don't try to shift the existing model. Create a whole new model that makes the old model obsolete. Right? I'm paraphrasing, but basically, we need to create a whole new model that makes the old model obsolete. And if so, we can reimagine the educational system, but we have to start with a whole new model, because the reason why the education system was built was to help us with the production in manufacturing back in the war. That is, if you go back to the beginning of the educational system, and I know probably a lot of teachers might have a go at me for that, but really, if you fundamentally go back to it, it was teaching people reading, writing, and arithmetic so they could work in factories. So the educational system is designed to create workers, not thinkers.
Not thinkers, not relators, right?
No.
By the way, have you seen the movie Captain Fantastic?
No.
Everybody write this down. Captain Fantastic. It's got Viggo Mortensen in it. What's his name? Victor Mortensen.
See the guy from Lord of the Rings and all that?
I'm not sure if he was in Lord of the Rings, but he's a famous actor, and raises his 5 kids out in the wild and teaches them they have to kill their own food, and they have to learn 5 languages, and they have to, he just educates them on a crazy scale, and gets it in many ways right. There's some drama in the movie, et cetera. But Nancy Moody, the amazing Nancy Moody. Upper management gets away with lying on reports, whereas lower management is crucified for making personal copies at work. Geez, Nancy, why are you calling me offsides? This like whole, and we've had some of these discussions, but the insanity of that you're supposed to use your personal stuff at home to respond to emails, and what is the biggest asset that you personally own? What is your most important asset, Dave?
Me? Oh, sorry. That I own?
That everybody owns. What's your most important asset? Most valuable asset?
Well, I was going to say my character.
I think it's our time. Okay, I'm talking about like a commodity, like a right. So when you're asking me to work,
the most finite asset for sure is time.
So when you're, is me working from home and giving up my time worth more than 40 pages of copy paper?
Yeah. So if I took 40 pages of copy paper at work and I printed something out, but I was working 2 hours at home on stuff for work, is that what we're getting at here?
Yeah, and I'm not recommending, I know people who steal at the office and do all sorts of craziness. But I think companies ought to be a lot more open about resources and things and say, hey, look, you're working on your master's degree. We support that. We believe in that. You want to print your paper out and take it to class tomorrow, do it. We've got the machine. No big deal. I don't know. It's a fine line. Where do you, because then people start stealing paper clips and Scotch tape, and next thing you know, they're taking sodas out of the fridge and taking them home. When that's happening, you have a much deeper problem. But yeah, no, I agree with you that there's a big gap between what is expected of, and it came off the screen, but what Nancy called them, I think she said, did she call them lower workers? Wait,
lower
management. Upper management, lower management. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. You say we don't have a caste system in corporate America. Just listen to the language. Upper management, lower management.
Yeah, well, and this is why I challenge organizations to, I think top-down leadership is a thing of the past and all-around leadership is the way forward. And when we think about, what we talked about last time is that people want coaches, not bosses. What do we need management for? Management should be all about the science and the numbers and the resources and all that, which is not people. I'd be more interested in the leadership of the organization than the management in that sense. To me, I guess maybe that's the difference between a leader and a manager. Is a leader has emotional intelligence and a manager is just intelligent, and they just work on numbers and resourcing and science. They don't understand the art of people. But this whole upper and lower, this archaic thinking, and to me, remember that the word archaic is buried somewhere in hierarchy. The same letters are in there. Hierarchical. Is what if we could build this ecosystem of leadership in our organizations instead of an ecosystem of leadership? I've talked about this before, like the upper management, I'm part of upper management. Well, that's ego talking. Like, who gives a crap if you're upper or lower or wherever you are on the snakes and ladders of corporate or your organizational structure? Even if you're the business, I'm the business owner or I'm the CEO. Imagine if we could create a culture where the director of first impressions could walk straight into the CEO's office and share some information with them. And we could have, once again, like I said, power and information coexisting in the same space at the same time.
So I agree. Ken Wilber talks a lot about hierarchy, and there are different kinds of hierarchies. And hierarchy, to anybody who says that, hierarchies are evil doesn't understand that almost the entire, planet existence, galaxy, whatever, is built on hierarchies, right? You've got from amoeba to, sentient beings.
The food chain.
Some would argue that amoebas are sentient beings, but there's a functional hierarchy which has to do with job function,
Mm.
That changes. But when it gets to be an oppressive hierarchy, or it gets to be a caste system, I don't know why I'm stuck on that word tonight, but when it gets to be a better than that, kind of hierarchy, you miss the whole organism part instead of the organization. I mean, how high on the body hierarchy is a toenail compared to your heart? Well, no, the heart is way more important. But drop a brick on your toe and you'll figure out that, you may be kind of glad you had that toenail there, although you might not have it now, but it served its function and its purpose. And so it's not to be diminished as well. You're not important. You're not the heart, right? Because it's
No.
it's working really in conjunction with each other. So, I don't think hierarchies are necessarily, you probably don't make 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds make decisions about the family spending because there's, older people in the room that have a lot more experience and that, bring different things to the table. But when it's a lording over kind of situation, you get into a whole different deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Tim is bringing the hits tonight. The educational system is developing robots. Love the discussion. Right. Got to go. You will be missed. We'll watch for you guys again. Stay well. Residing in Mexico these days. Hey, you're closer to me than you are to your Canuck buddy over there. Cheers. Go Habs. That hurt. Tim, where in Mexico, if you got time, real quick, where in Mexico are you? If you got time to chime in.
I think, I don't know if I can tell you.
You might have signed out and then actually signed out. So
yeah.
Okay. So in conclusion, Dave Clare, we've covered quite a bit of territory tonight.
Yeah.
And we didn't even get to my question, which may or may not be on point, which is, what are the odds we're living in a computer simulation? We'll have to tease that and leave that.
There you go. Monterey. Tim's in Monterey, he said, mate. There you go.
Monterey. Monterey is supposed to be beautiful. That's one of the few places in Mexico I haven't been, but I've heard it's gorgeous. So, Dave, parting brilliance from the great Dave Clare.
I want to, I guess for me, thinking about culture, let's tie all this conversation into what people would refer to as the future of work or the future of leadership, right? How do you avoid building cliques and build a inclusive culture and have a very emotionally intelligent team and everything like that from a leadership point of view, and when you're doing it in a remote working situation or distributed working?
Wow. Shared information, transparency, touch points across the board, acknowledgement, not just a circle. Well, I started to say a different word, but a circle backslapping, right?
Yeah.
Where it's just the few that are acknowledging each other. Recognizing that every role brings absolute value and celebrating that in some fashion. Highlighting different people, taking people that are not popular or charismatic and bringing them to the table. I don't know. Those are just some off the top of my head ideas.
Good. So when you think about like this whole clique thing and stuff, imagine if you had a culture where it was set up and everyone's distributed working, can be working all across the globe or all across whatever part of whatever continent you're on or country you're in, where once again, the director of first impressions could call up, I'm Dave, the director of first impressions, and you're Daren, the CEO of the GCCA. And I feel confident to call you up and say, hey, Daren, how you doing today? Just want to check in on you and see how you're feeling. Sure. I know you're working in you're in Dallas right now, and it's like that, and we're over here in sunny, cold Australia, and man, I was just thinking of you, and just wanted to reach out and say good day and see how you're feeling.
Yeah, I love it.
What you talk about building a company of owners and stuff like that, like, which is obviously is a mindset point of view. But why couldn't I call you and just check in on you and see how you're doing? Why could I not include you? And hey, the team down here in Australia, we were talking about this, and we thought, oh, I wonder if Daren knows about that. We should get him on a call and just see if he wants to come in and join us on this conversation.
Sure.
Like, imagine if we could have organizations where that could happen.
Depending on size of company, you do get to scale, right? If all 500,000 employees had Jeff Bezos' cell phone number, and I don't know that they don't, that could get a little bit messy. But there ought to be a platform where they do have access to Jeff Bezos.
Yeah,
and I hope that when Jeff shows up at a plant, he walks out in the middle of the floor and does a town hall. That would be straight up. There are lots of ways to maintain that contact.
So there's a company over here, I won't name them, but I was working with the West Australian division of that organization, and the CEO of the company came over finally in the first time in 3 years, and it was only over for they flew out in the morning, and then they were going to fly back out that night, which is fine. And the first thing is they wanted to meet at the airport, then go straight and visit some clients and do some stuff, and then had lunch with the general manager of WA, and then jumped into the thing and then flew home. And West Australian division were all excited that the CEO is coming to WA. Didn't even go into the office, didn't even go and meet one of the people there, came over, visited 3 clients, jumped on a plane and flew back home.
Huge mistake. Massive.
Yeah. Because what message do you think that sent? Like the team, well, finally we're going to get to meet the CEO. We've never met him in person. What do you think? How do you think they felt?
Yeah. And what if a political candidate who we know are the pinnacles of everything, integrity, culture, I'm just kidding. But even they have the sense to know that when you fly into, when you're trying to get people to vote for you, and even if it's fake, which I believe a lot of it just flat out is, they don't come in, fly in. They may do this as well with a high priced dinner and meet with the 10 wealthiest people in town, and hey, please give to but they go to the cafe, right? They go to the city square, and they hold a rally, and they talk to people and say, I believe in you. So even if it's put on, which is, maybe worse than not doing it at all, from a corporate standpoint, there is so much goodwill to saying the CEO shook my hand, right? The brand loyalty, the company loyalty that buys, the discretionary effort that people give when they feel like you actually care about them. And then the bonus is when you actually do care about them. Yeah. I mean, I leaders are so short-sighted not to get the value of that. I worked at a contrast company. To contrast that, we had this supervisor school, an amazing leader. I'll mention him. I'm not embarrassed to do that because I'm quite proud of the man. But Mike Jennings, CEO of this company, and Mike would at happy hour stand around. And you've got a mix of people from the company, the people, as I say, closest to the valve that are, running the equipment that come in for this big training deal. And it's kind of a honor, great to be there. And Mike would purposefully go out of his way to not just hang out with the VPs and the, plant managers. He was over there talking to the people that were out there running the company and saying, hey, how's it going? Hey, I'm Mike Jennings. What do you think about
that? Totally not undercover boss.
Yeah. He, he wasn't an undercover boss because he didn't need to be.
That's right.
I remember him. Well, I won't share that story, but let's just say he toured something, and and was completely in agreement with the people that were complaining about this piece of equipment, rather than taking the party line. Well, you know that blah 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 blah. He said, "Look, I'm walking around, I'm looking at it. I totally see what your complaints are."
Yeah.
He had somebody in the town hall say, "Well, you know, this recent move that you made is causing this kind of impact. I don't think you realize this, that financially, you know, the move in the plan and what we did with the insurance, or, you know, is costing us X amount of dollars." And he's like, "I'm 100% not aware of that. I will check into it, and I'll have an answer within 24 hours." And within 24 hours, that move was reversed. Okay.
Wow.
Now, I mean, that almost tears me up, because you see that so infrequently. But man, if you don't think that's high level leadership, and that engenders complete support for the company, then you're just missing the boat. You know, you got to.
Well, yeah, it's funny, like you use the word high level leadership in terms of, yes, it's like in terms of the quality and the caliber of leadership, but not the position of leadership, because he was making sure that he was on the same level as the people that he was talking to.
Yeah.
He has different responsibilities, different decision making, but when his power and their information came together, guess what happened? Made smarter decisions for the betterment of the organization and going forward. But when those decisions are being made like this, power and information don't exist together, then that's how the original one was made. Then he goes, hang on, let's bring power and information together, and go, holy crap, because there's no need, like higher level in terms of quality of leadership, but not high level in terms of I'm up here, you're down here. So why would I listen to you? I'm smarter than you because I'm up here.
Dave, I always sit at your feet because you're just such a master with words. But I love your line, when his power meets their information.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's just so poignant, because that's exactly what needs to happen. If the power and the information never cross paths, I actually need your permission. I'll put a little byline in it. I'm working on whiteboard 2, which is, you know, business strategies, and I'm going to put that in whiteboard. That's going in there tonight. So
thank you.
That's
well, you have my absolute and so I want to bring this right back now to that WA organization, what you're talking about, because you raised a beautiful point. So that CEO comes over here, visits all the clients. What do you think he was doing with all the clients? Like, in terms of, like, why was he coming to visit the clients?
To garner business? I don't know.
Like to you know, ensure the promises of the company, and, you know, restate their position and the value of those clients to them and all this, right? And then gets on a plane and goes back home. And then all of a sudden he's got this team of people who are going, what the heck? He wouldn't even come in and see us and didn't care about us. And he's just told the clients how much they care about the clients, but he doesn't care about the people. So now all of a sudden, the clients are the ones going to have to deal with those people day to day. They don't deal with the CEO day to day. They deal with those people. And those people are now feeling even less than they were before he got here, because he got here and he didn't even spend an ounce of time with them. And so he's promising more and challenging his team to have to deliver more, or at the highest level, when he forgot who his first customers were.
When you only deal with the downstream and you forget the upstream, right? Clients are the trailing indicator, not the leading indicator. The leading indicator are your stakeholders and your true shareholders, right? Which are the people that work at the company. And when you take care of them first, then somehow when you take care of the upstream, the downstream has a way of just taking care of itself. And it doesn't mean that's not important and that he shouldn't have, you know, hey, here's an idea. Maybe you fly in for longer than, 12 hours on the private company plane.
Instead of going to breakfast, he could have just come straight in the team and said, organize a little quick breakfast. We'll be in there for half an hour. He had a half an hour breakfast with have it in the office.
Right.
And just put on something there, and just, like, you can do something. Don't tell me that you talked about, the greatest asset, or the most thing, which is time.
Right.
And he didn't make any for those people. Yeah. And you talk about the shareholding. So the emotional shareholding of that company, price value dropped.
Right. Stock,
when he could have really improved the stock of the emotional shareholding of that company. Because I believe everyone's a shareholder in the company. Some people are financial and some people are emotional. So that I was talking to a buddy of mine. He's managing director of one of our clients, and he said, like, I'm not one of the shareholders. I said, yes, you are. You have an emotional stake in this company, and don't undervalue that. Okay. You might not have a financial stake, but you have an emotional stake.
Dave, you may think I'm joking, but let's talk in earnest about collaborating on Whiteboard 2, because I think we could produce some magic on that, but let's have that as an offline conversation. Maybe it would work, maybe it wouldn't, but whatever. I love working with you, man. You are the boss. You're fantastic. I love your brain, and I love your passion and vision for this whole evolution at work. I think I mentioned to you that we've done a new cover for Evolution at Work, which is a little book that was put out by the Global Company Culture Association. By the way, if you're not a member, join. It's free. Global Company Culture Association.com. But we've made some changes in the book. And then part of our gift on this evolution is that book is going to go out free to the world. Hey, distribute it will. It's going to be in digital form. And, I would love to see that thing spread like hotcakes, because we're sounding the alarm. So thank you for really believing in this, really feeling the pain of people out there who are going to dead-end jobs and who are frustrated, and sharing all the kinds of things that we're talking about today. And let's do this. We've got this.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, it's going to take all of us in organizations to create a much better place to work, a better place to, better culture for us as a society, like to shift this consciousness of the planet. It's going to take more than just the Global Company Culture Association. It's going to take the greatest, most diverse thinkers and minds around how we all interact and work and live and play together. And I think, that's the whole point of this, is how do we rally all those people?
Absolutely. So signing off, Tony Stark, tell Brad Pitt's dad bye. And
see you, Mr. Pitt Sr.
And I'll go give Renee Zellweger a kiss.
Oh, don't tell her. I did not say that. But give her a kiss for me anyway.
She's going to smack you first time she sees you. So,
and I will deserve it, and I will accept that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got to go wake Pepper Potts up. Tell her it's time to get on with the day.
All right. Peace out, brother.
Okay. Cheers. Bye. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Cheers.
Bye.